So, in their quest to understand their environment and their world and learn everything that they need to learn, children use what is called a theory to kind of explain things that don't make sense to them, or they're new and they need an explanation. So, by naturally, children will ask questions of the adult so that they can explain to them that conflict or that uh, uh, aspect that they're not really understanding. And this is a magical opportunity for the adult in their life to help aid their development. And if you have a preschooler or a child in the early childhood years, you know very well that they asked a lot of why questions, and after every why question, there's another why question. And that is not to really make your life miserable, but rather to kind of understand and make things make sense in their mind. And remember that logic is really hard for them. So when they ask questions, they are really trying to satisfy their concept of understanding. It has to make sense to them, not to you as the adult. Now, if they did not find an adult who is attentive or is able to explain things, then rest assured that they will actually make up their own answer in their mind. They will theorize of how this works or why it happened in a way that can put their mind at ease. And sometimes those theories that they come up with are misconceptions, and that's why some children misunderstand the actions of adult and might fall prey to wrong conclusions or develop certain fears because of things that they did not get a chance from an adult to explain to them and help them through getting to understand them. They also theorize that everybody intends to do things correctly. And this is actually going back to what we said about over imitation. The reason why they over imitate is because they really do believe that you intended to do this. It's not that you did it because you forgot or because, as an accident or as an extra step that didn't mean anything. They really do believe that you're doing this because you know what you're doing and you're doing it in order, and every single step that you do is needed. They also theorize that people have good intentions and that they do not really have the understanding yet that people can be deceptive. This is a step that is going to require a higher level of cognition, the next step of understanding that people can do things incorrectly or intentionally do things wrong. And this is why sometimes you find children insisting that if somebody bumped into them, that they did not bump into them as on an accident, but rather that no, they meant to bump into them. So the next thing that leads into this concept of theorizing is the concept of theory of mind. And theory of mind is simply the person's ability to know that what I'm thinking of might not necessarily be what you're thinking of. So this concept of a person's thought process might not be the same as mine is something that not all children develop at the same time. As a matter of fact, typically this concept, theory of mind, develops at around 4 years and up. It takes time for the child to realize that what I am thinking of is not the same as what my friend or my mom or my teacher is thinking of. Now, remember at the beginning we talked about how Piaget said there is a limitation of logic that prevents them from seeing things logically or thinking about things logically. And one of those limitations was egocentrism or centration on the aspect of something that they're looking at or seeing. So because of that concept of egocentrism, they really do see things from one perspective and one perspective only. So it takes time for them to develop the ability to see it from somebody else's perspective. So I wanted to share this small cartoon, which I really think is really relevant to those who interact with young children. Say somebody called on the phone, and they wanted to talk to their, the little guy at home or their son, and they would ask, what are you doing? And the child will say, playing. And if they say, what are you playing? They'll say, playing with this. And playing with this implies that the child assumes that you can see what I'm playing with. It takes a while for them to understand that, well, daddy's at work or mommy's at work. She cannot really see what I am seeing. Also, as you will see in the next video, when children are asked about what's inside, let's say, a typical box of crayons, their initial understanding is that crayons should be in a box of crayon. But after you open the box and you show them that there's actually candles in the box of crayons, they will not be able to understand the concept of somebody else coming in who did not know what is inside the crayon box, thinking that there are crayons. They will assume that since I know now there is no crayons in there, there's actually candles, then everybody else will think that it is as well. It is candles. It's not until they reach the age of 4 and above that they can start to theorize or understand that, okay, people have different thoughts. People might not think what I'm thinking because they have not seen what's in the box yet. So the concept of deception, tricking someone and trying to figure out that they are not thinking the same way I'm thinking, is something that requires a maturity in the concept of theory of mind. So what improves theory of mind? How can we get children to have a better or a stronger theory of mind? Well, it takes 3 components. The first one is maturation of the prefrontal cortex. Remember, the prefrontal cortex is that ability for your brain to really think, process thought, inhibit other thoughts, focus. There's a lot of executive function that's taking place in the prefrontal cortex, and that needs to mature in order for you to have better theory of mind. Another tool to help theory of mind is language development. Language aids the development of theory of mind. It definitely improves the development of the brain, and in particular the prefrontal cortex. And finally, interaction, because the more you interact, the more you kind of like work your brain. So social interaction with other children, and particularly siblings who might try to trick you and get you to to give up your piece of candy or share your toy. And the more you get interaction and kind of get fall into the same trap, the better you develop the ability to see that not everybody thinks the same way. So you become a little bit more immune, and that immunity is kind of building that theory of mind, is strengthening that thought process that not everybody thinks the same way I do. One developmentalist actually went on to saying that 2 older siblings are worth about a year of chronological age. So usually the third child or the youngest child develops at a faster pace than the oldest, because they are actually getting trained through that social interaction with their siblings.